Yo yo. All right, let's see if this stream is functioning as it should be. If you are currently able to both see me, my screen, and hear me, if you could just give like a thumbs up or something in the chat so I know that all systems are working. And then we can get started. But I hope everybody's having a great Thursday so far. And we're going to be talking about TikTok. Perfect. Got some thumbs up coming in. All right, perfect. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about TikTok, and we're going to be talking about some things that you may have heard or may have not heard or may have tried or may have not tried. Most education that is currently coming out about, I believe, any type of media buying is very repetitive in my opinion. And I believe that a lot of people are too focused on the strategies revolving media buying and the gimmicks, if you will, revolving media buying, and not enough focused on the stuff that's actually gonna make you money. And that's what I want to talk about here today. So today we're going to be talking about how can you use this platform, that I believe all of us here are having access to, in order to drive profitable, consistent revenue to your brands, to your e-commerce stores. That's the conversation I want to have here today. I have a few things we're going to run through, and then we can open it up for some question answers. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. First things first. What determines if your ad account works, right? I want you guys to kind of like write this as a question in your own way, in your own, notebooks or whatnot. But like ask yourself or write down what determines if I get sales or not, right? And I can tell you the answer is going to be the content that you show people, right? So at the core of running any type of paid ads, you have to have very good content. Your content has to convince your target demographic that they need that product, and it needs to convince them to go to your website and to buy that product, right? That's at the core of running any type of ads. And I can promise you that that is the biggest part that most people completely miss. You have to be testing on a very consistent basis a lot of content. Now, Alex, where do I get these ideas for content? Alex, where do I, how much content should I be running, right? So let's dive into it a little bit deeper. So, first and foremost, let's talk about where I get inspiration for a majority of our content that we create and test, and what is solely responsible for finding multiple winning pieces of content that has allowed us, this month to spend $20,000 on TikTok ads and generate a pretty good return, on our investment, right? This is from both TikTok and Facebook. That's where we primarily advertise on. But on TikTok, we've had I would say about a 2.2 marketing efficiency ratio. And we were getting pretty decently about $25 cost per acquisitions, which is not bad, right? For me, I'm happy with that. And I want to talk about how I identified a lot of this content, right? Circling back, a lot of this content that I tested that I found that worked. I want to talk about how I found that content. Okay. So let's talk about that. This is kind of like bullet point one that we're going to be covering here today. Where to find inspiration, right? So there's two great resources that I like to always recommend people for identifying inspiration on what should you create, right? What content should you run? Well, let's dive into. So first one is such a no-brainer, but dude, so many people don't know about this. TikTok has an inspiration center. It's called Creative Center, where you can literally look at ads that are the top performing ads on TikTok that are getting the most spend on the platform. This is a fantastic place to go and dive into to understand what are your competitors running? How much money are they spending? Do they have a high click-through rate on those ads? Are the ads effective? So step one, when identifying what you're going to be running, I believe should always be what is currently working for other people, right? I think that's a very fair, logical, conclusion to make when starting off and identifying what content you should be running on TikTok. I like to go through here and I like to sort it by United States. If we want to be specific about industry, like I'm in the jewelry space, so we could probably go to say high-end jewelry, and then we can sort this by, let's say, conversions, let's say last 30 days. And then we can go over here and we can sort by click-through rate. Cool. So what is this telling me here? Well, what I just did here is I sorted by, the niche that I'm in, high-end jewelry. I sorted by conversions. And now I can see the pieces of content that have had the best click-through rate. Now, why does this matter? Why does click-through rate matter? Click-through rate matters because that is single-handedly one of the most important metrics that TikTok takes into consideration when deciding if it's going to charge you more money or less money for your ads. Right? Shocker, right? And I could probably pull up a screenshot that will go in more in depth on this, but I don't want to spend too much time diving in on that. Instead, I want to talk about how I would approach using this inspiration to create some content, right? So first thing I would do is I would start going through these, right? So let's actually go through these. I'll pause my music. Let's go through these. You can see one consistent thing in the jewelry space is showing your product. It's called product showcase. It's as simple as that, which is showing your product that speaks for itself. So for me, I know right away that I should be creating, right? Just by taking 2 minutes and looking at this and seeing what is everybody else running, you can see one very simple consistency in the jewelry space, that a lot of the content that's getting ad spend that has high click-through rates is just showing the product. The product speaks for itself. That's what you could see here. Fantastic, right? So let's just take an example here. I think this here might be a good example. Point of view, he buys you a chain set with his initials. Great. I think this is a great example here. What I would do is I would take this exact piece of content right here and I would have my team recreate it. What I would do if I was just starting off and just testing a new product is I would identify what are the pieces of content that are getting spend that have high click-through rates, and I would recreate them myself. I would take my phone, I would shoot some content of this product, of my product, and I would recreate it. I would edit it in the same way. I would use the same music, and ultimately I would try to replicate the winning variables of this piece of content. And I can tell you that this strategy of replicating pieces of content that work for other people is literally a hack. Like, I can show you multiple pieces of content that we've created. Here, just let's pull an example, right? Look at this. This here has gotten well over 100 purchases in the last, in this last month, at very good cost per acquisitions for me. And I can tell you that this piece of content right here Okay. 7 seconds. This necklace has your dog's face on it. Shows the product, shows the product. And literally shows another shot of the product over here. And then says, send this to someone you love. This exact piece of content right here, I found through what I'm just showing you guys, right? The same style. Somebody else came up with this idea or stole it from somebody else and put together this piece of music with product showcase, which is showcasing the product, this exact same text at the end, send this to someone you love. And I'll even go as far as I can try to find this exact piece of content if you guys are curious to see. But I don't want to go too much off track. So identifying pieces of content through the TikTok Creative Center, easy hack to identify pieces you should try to recreate. Next, PP ads. This is also huge. I use this every single day to spy on what content is getting the most ad spend on TikTok. How can you do this? You sort by e-commerce, you sort by US. I like to do Canada, UK. We go over here to first seen. I want to see ads that are recent, that are running in the last 7 days and that are still running in the last 12 hours. This is going to ensure that I'm only seeing content that's relevant, right? Let's go over here and let's sort by ad impressions. Awesome. We now have content that has gotten this piece of content right here, 20.5 million ad impressions. What does that mean? That they spent money on it, that it's working in some way, shape, or form. It's working for them. So what am I going to do? I'm going to see, can I recreate this for my brand, for my business? That's how you guys should be thinking about all these pieces of content that are getting a lot of money spent to them, right? Circling back, this is point 1 that we're talking about, which is using data-backed inspiration to create new content. Because before you do anything in your ad account, you need to have some good, decent content to test, right? Is everybody following? I hope everybody's following. So let's keep going through this. So let's see how we can take one of these pieces and essentially recreate it. Now, these are going to be from the top brands that are spending, tens of thousands of dollars on ads like Prada, etc. So I like to typically go a step further, which is to narrow this down a little bit more. Now, actually, I found one here that I'm gonna showcase that I think is perfect, and then we'll narrow it down. So right here, this piece of content right here, I think is genius. I think it's beautiful, and this is something I would recreate. Let's watch it. Oh. And that's it. It's such a what? Like this is a 12-second piece of content that has all of the text that stays on it throughout the whole video. This thing is going to take you less than a couple of minutes to edit. Heck, I could probably edit this on this live stream and still have time to go through everything else. But the point I'm trying to get here, with this conversation is that what I would do, right? Again, circling back to if I'm starting something brand new, before I'm running any ads, I'm looking what is getting ad spend. This here has gotten 4.8 million ad impressions. They have spent easily a couple of $1,000s on this piece of content. That tells me that this is something that could potentially work. So I am now going to take this piece of content and have my team recreate it. You see? So this is why it's one of the easiest and most no-brainer first approaches, if you will, for what content should I create. Because you can identify what's working for other people, you can recreate that, and now the chances of this style performing for me are significantly higher because somebody already tested it, right? So cool. I would recommend that every single one of you guys watching this live stream identifies a minimum of 10 to 15 inspiration pieces, whether it's through PP ads or whether it's through the free TikTok Creative Center, each week, right? Each week, 10 to 15 pieces, identify them, download them, open up your favorite editing software, drag that file in, use the same music, upload your footage on top, splice your footage so that it matches the same changes and transitions, and add the same text, same style of text, but tweak it slightly so it's relevant for you. I can almost promise you that whoever implements that on a consistent weekly basis and tests those consistently is going to find success in those creatives and a few of those creatives starting to perform. Okay? 10% of creatives we test work. So if you test 10, you might have one that works. You might have two that work. But that's still going to be 1 to 2 more each week than you probably currently have. Awesome. So that was point number 1. I hope I hope that's beneficial. And I don't think that's something a lot of people talk about. So that's why, this stream is called TikTok Ad Secrets No One is Talking About. Okay, cool. Let's hop into the second one, since we have 4 points to go through today, and I want to make sure we're being as efficient with everybody's time. Cool. So let's go through point number 2. Point number 2 is your ads account structure does not matter if you have good ads, right? It ties back to point number 1, and let's talk about this, right? And I have some examples to show you guys as well. So, diving into it, what do I mean by this? Well, we just looked at here this piece of content that in this bid ladder generated 224 purchases at a $22 cost per acquisition. That's pretty damn good, like I mentioned before. Now, this piece of content here, I want to share with you guys something. This piece of content I ran in this campaign. I ran it with accelerated budgets on a bid ladder, right? And I tried some fancy stuff with it, and it got me some good results. But, right, here's the but. Look at this. If we look at the original campaign that was running this piece of content, that has a simple testing structure to it. And I'll show you guys what I mean by testing structure. I'll actually show you exactly how I have this ad set up. Look at this. It is simple, but yet it also generated 214 purchases. Same ad at a slightly higher cost per acquisition, but still a very good cost per acquisition for me. But about the same results. So, what I'm noticing here is the same ad had the same performance with 2 different structures, right? Now, there's going to be people that are all the time freaking out, and I think a lot of you guys can relate to this. It's like, well, am I media buying correctly? Should I have an accelerated spend turned on? Should I do this? Should I do that? If you take good content and you put it into a very simple testing ad set, and you put some budget behind it over 7 days, at the end of 7 days, you will be able to look at that piece of content and be able to say, is it a good piece of content or is it not a good piece of content? That's what you can do. And that should be what you do when you media buy. You should be on a mission to identify new content that is performing well for you. And once you have multiple pieces of content that are performing for you, now it's much easier to scale with those. So where do I want to get, with this conversation? And this ties directly into point 1. What you guys should first be doing, right, at the very first step of TikTok ads journey, right, whatever you want to call this, is identifying content that has the highest chance to perform through competitor research, taking inspiration from your competitors' ads, recreating them, and then taking that content and testing that content in the most simple, non-complicated way possible. Let's talk about what that looks like. Let's look at this ad set here. And if you haven't already, there's multiple videos both on my YouTube channel that go through this exact structure, right? So if you need to recap, but let's go through it, right? I'm always optimizing for complete payment. I think it's a no-brainer. If I'm trying to get purchases, I want to be optimizing for purchases. That's just me. I like to turn off, include search results, and I like to turn off video downloading. I don't want other people downloading my content, right? Everything else I leave on. Inside of my location, I primarily sell to the United States and to Canada. If you guys have something different, input something different there. And I target all genders between the ages of 18 to 44. Now, this is going to slightly vary depending on your product, on your target demographic. But ultimately, I have identified that targeting all genders is actually better performing than targeting just one gender. Why? Because typically you're going to have the other gender that's going to buy it as a gift for their boyfriends, for their girlfriends, for their cousins, for their moms, for their, So I like to keep it on, right? Let's hop into the targeting, right? So my favorite targeting strategy for testing creatives is this. You want to take and create an interest and hashtag stack. Super simple. You add a few different interests that are applicable to your niche. Then you add a bunch of hashtags that are applicable to your niche. And that's it. You stack it, right? You could see here I have pets, gifts, dogs. I have hashtag pet, hashtag dogs on TikTok, hashtag dog mom struggles, right? You could read through it. I'm not going to read all these out loud. But that's it. That's all the targeting I am doing. And this is ensuring that what happens? That my creative that I want to test is getting put in front of the people that I want to see it. That is all that matters, guys. You need to take your content that you're testing. You want to find good content, so you're testing it. And you want to put it in front of people that are going to potentially be interested in buying your product. That's media buying 101. Yet too many people overcomplicate it, right? Focus more on content, focus less on media buying strategy, and you're going to see a lot more performance. All right. So that's that. Let's keep going through this. So I have my budget here set at $50 a day. This is because this is something that's been performing. I typically like to start it at $20 a day, right? $20 a day. It's nothing crazy. I think everybody can, afford that budget, but write this down. It needs to spend for a minimum of 5 to 7 days, right? No, don't go and turn off your shit after one day. You don't let nothing learn, right? Like, think about this. You are paying TikTok and their algorithm for their algorithm to take your content, put it out to the world, and identify who it can sell it to, right? One day of $20 spend is not going to get you enough data to feed that algorithm for it to learn, for it to be able to optimize. This is applicable across TikTok, across Facebook, and probably across every other platform. You have to let things learn. And this rolls directly into the third point that I want to make here today, which is attribution in this day and age with all this privacy shit that's going on with Apple, iOS 14, yada yada, is garbage. It's shit. So you as a media buyer have to identify how can you, regardless of that, still be able to media buy and track your acquisitions. And I can tell you that the secret to that directly rolls to looking at a multiple day view. If I were to look at, and we can circle back to this. I hope I explained the targeting here. I don't think there's anything else I'm missing here on this testing campaign. If we look at this exact ad set right here, and we look at today, it got 0 purchases and it spent $15, right? Some people out there be freaking out over this. No, look, last 7 days, if we look at it on a blended view, $18 CPAs. So that's why it's extremely important that when you are media buying on any platform, TikTok included, that you look at a blended view. All right. I do want to touch base one more thing here on this ad set before we move on. And that's just how I have the actual ad side of it set up. So those of you that are watching and want to replicate how I test my content on TikTok can do so. Right? So I like to have smart creative turned on. This is just going to allow you to mix and match your creative and copy more efficiently. I like to put anywhere from literally 3 to 30 pieces of content in here. Now, yes, you can put 30 pieces of content in here and you can see success with that, but you have to let it spend and learn for a longer period of time. So typically I like to have between 2 to 3 to 5 pieces of content that I put into here that are all slight variations of each other. So let's take a look at what that means. So we know that this V8, V3 that we all just took a look at, we all know it's a winning piece of content, right? I'll play it again and then we'll look at some of the other variations so you guys can see how I am approaching variation testing.
You need to listen to this. Baby, you got me. It ain't nowhere that I be. Done with your...
Right? Great. Let's take a look at this variation. So this was the first variation of it. Now try to identify, I'm gonna play this. Look and try to identify for yourself what's different.
You need to listen to this. Baby, you got me. It ain't nowhere that I be. Done with your...
Okay, and we're gonna do the second variation as well.
You need to listen to this. Baby, you got me. It ain't nowhere that I be. Done with your...
Great. So one thing that I think we can all see as different between these 3 pieces of content is the copy, the hook copy. And I want you guys to write this down. Test hook copies, because this is one of the easiest levers that you can pull to identify more winning content. Okay? And we're gonna circle back to this and I'm gonna blow your guys' minds, right? So yeah, write test hook copies. And let's now dive into why that's important. So we covered already using data-backed inspiration to create fresh ads that are proven by other companies in your ad account. We've talked about how structure in your ad account does not matter nearly as much as creative. We talked about how attribution is shit and not to media buy on the 1-day time frame, but on a 7-day time frame. That's how I like to do it. And we're now kind of diving into what I want to talk about fatigue. Ad fatigue. Alec, my ads are fatigued, right? Let's dive into it. So what you guys just wrote down about testing hook copy is a key. A key that absolutely buttfuck nobody else is talking about right now in being able to refresh your existing winning content that might have fatigued. Cool, let's talk about it. So one of the pieces of content that I have spent across TikTok and Facebook, I spent easily $250,000 on this piece of content. That's actually, I'm just gonna show you guys the piece of content so you guys have some context around it. So the piece of content that I've spent about $250,000 on is called Melt 1. Now this is an ad that we created back end of last year during Q4. And you can see, let's see, if we look at maximum, you can see this piece of content spent, Melt. Should have spent about 229,000. And this is just on Facebook. It spent about the same on TikTok. And I want to take a look at this piece of content. So we're going to take a look at this piece of content. And then I want to show you guys how I took that piece of content that ended up fatiguing and how I brought that shit back, right? And how you can do the same thing, right? So let's take a look at that piece of content. I'm gonna pull it up here for you guys so you can see the ad. Also, when I media buy, I like to just color code things so I know, what I uploaded and what I didn't upload. And I also like to color code it so I can see when I have a winning ad. Look, the one that has a green on it, it's a winning ad for me. So let's take a look at Melt One. So this here is Melt One. And you can see why it's called Melt One. It says, I would melt for this necklace. Let's watch. Super simple piece of content. I think we can all agree this is a super simple piece of content, yet this was a ridiculously effective piece of content for me. Now, I ran this piece of content. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this piece of content, and guess what? It started to fatigue, right? Now, one thing that I learned that I could do, actually this year, I started testing this, is I started taking pieces of content that would quote unquote fatigue, and I would start testing new copy that is more relevant now. I started testing new music that is trending right now, right? And I started mixing new music, new copy with previously winning content. And guess what? It brought it back. So let's talk a little bit about this. So on TikTok, we have some creative testing we've been doing this month. And check this shit out. This is the same exact testing strategy I just shared with you guys. Interest hashtags, the same exact setup, except check this out. Remember how I said you can go up to 30? This one is testing 30 pieces of content in here. And check this out. What is the difference between these 30 pieces of content? I'm just going to click through them and you'll be able to see here. The copy at the beginning. That's the difference here. And by simply testing different copy, different hook copy, I was able to effectively identify a new winning variation of this piece of content. Same thing, except the beginning is different. And that allowed it to resonate with more people, re-resonate with people, and essentially refresh it. Right? Okay, so does that make sense? Is that beneficial? You know, give me some thumbs up, give me some feedback in the live chat if this is, if this is beneficial, if this is good. But yeah, refreshing content to help with ad fatigue is absolutely huge. One of the other things that is going to help your accounts with ad fatigue is just having a wider diversity of content inside of your account. Not the same thing, but a lot more of just different things inside of your account. And I can show you what I mean by this. I have content that has been running. I have content that's been running since last year, right? That's still getting pretty damn good performance if we take a look at this month. Look, $22 CPAs. This content that's running inside of this ad set, this is stuff that's been running since probably the middle of 2023, right? I want to share with you this so you can see that content that you make can still be relevant. You just don't want to have only one piece of content running. You don't want to have only two pieces of content running. You don't want to have just 3 winners either. You want to have an arsenal. Like, I want you guys to understand that for you to be able to be successful on this platform, you need to turn into a fucking machine for making content. That's what's required of you. And then once you test this content and start to identify pieces of this content that are working for you, now you can start to horizontally have an army of different diverse content that is all bringing profitable sales to your company. This is how you are going to, on the long term, compound and build and be able to have much more consistency, right? That's what a lot of people miss is the how do I be consistent in this space? You build more diverse content. You find new ways to get people engaged with your videos, right? Okay. Sweet. Let's do this. So we're going to go through some questions and then we are going to call this good, right? I covered what I wanted to cover in terms of what I wanted to present here. If you guys are finding this in any type of way beneficial, I do lives like this every single week on a platform that I am building right now. It's called Ecom Live. It's completely free to sign up for. And you can go check it out if you want to have more stuff like this that's raw. But without further ado, let's hop into some questions. I know we had some that popped up in the chat here, so let's go ahead and take a look at those, and then we'll call this good because I value everybody's time and I want to, I want to make this nice, quick, and short. So, would you be able to explain the learning phase and how to get out of it, or what campaigns to do in order to test creatives? So I don't know if CC, you were here when I was explaining how I approach testing, but I like to test in an ABO, just ABO ad set budget optimization. And I like to simply plug in 3 to 5 creatives in there and use interest in hashtags for targeting. That's as simple as I like to do it. In terms of the learning phase, let's talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to pull up a chart here. I'll pull up a chart here. Let's see if I can pull this up. Click-through rate. Potentially might be able to find it, but I don't want to promise because this is... Let's see. There's a screenshot that I was given by a TikTok rep that would be very beneficial, I believe. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this here is directly correlated now to how the, beginning of your testing works. And this also directly correlates to the importance of click-through rate, right? We talked about click-through rate at the beginning of this call, and this directly ties back to it. I want you guys to take a look at this. There's what's called an eCPM, right? Your eCPM is the estimated amount that TikTok charges you for your ads. There's a formula to this. And that formula, guess what it takes directly into consideration? It doesn't take into consideration how much ad spend you put to it, because they're going to take your money no matter what, right? But what it does take into consideration is, are people clicking through to your website? Shocker, right? They give a shit if your ads are good. They're going to charge you more if your ads are bad, right? They give a shit about your estimated conversion rate. They care about if you are a good brand that is building an actual business that has a good conversion rate, that is converting the leads that are going from TikTok. They care about this stuff. And this stuff is directly correlated into how much you pay them, right? Check this out. Hidden costs. There's a positive impact for the cold start phase on TikTok. You guys wonder, well, why did my ads work really good the day number 1, but then fall off? There's a reason for it, because TikTok will give you more reach on the first few days of the cold start phase. And then they're going to take into consideration how many people are clicking to your site, what's the click-through rate, how is it converting, right? Is it converting good? And then they're going to charge you accordingly. There's a negative impact for dislikes and reports. If you're running some sketchy shit, you're going to have your stuff canceled You're not going to have a good reach. Your ad costs are going to be through the roof. You see how it makes sense. The platform and how it works, it makes sense. And you can see here, there's a direct funnel, and the eCPM ranking is the last part of it. What does that mean? That means that you could have the biggest audience. You could have 10 million, 100 million potential people to show your ad to. But if TikTok determines that through your ads having a shit click-through rate and determines through your ads having, or your website having a bad conversion rate, it's going to directly limit that amount down to a couple 100,000 people maybe. That it's going to say, okay, well, we'll deliver this guy's ads to these people because his ads are kind of ass, right? And then people wonder, well, why am I getting bad performance? Because your ads are bad and now you're not getting shown to the cream of the crop audience, right? You see how that kind of all builds. Okay, I kind of got a little bit off track here. I want to circle back to a few of these questions. So hopefully, CC, hopefully that answered your question. I don't know if I can have these on. I mean, you guys can see the questions, I think, so I don't even have to have this up here. But okay, Clutch says, hey Alex, when you say that you're media buying on a 7-day basis instead of day trading media buying, could you explain further on what you meant? Yes, I can. So instead of day trading with your ad account, literally, look, whenever I make decisions, I'm going to look on a 7-day blended view. I'm going to look from today is Thursday, the 29th. I'm going to look from Thursday, the 22nd to Thursday, the 29th, and I'm going to look at this blended view. And now I'm going to say, where am I bleeding money? Right? Where am I losing money on a 7-day view? Well, arguably, this smart performance campaign and this creative testing campaign are kind of at the borderline. And this bid scaling campaign down here is also kind of borderline and I should probably kill it. And this bid scaling campaign here is also borderline and I should probably kill it. But that decision is coming from a blended perspective and not from a daily perspective. Because when you look on a daily perspective, you are not considering a fuck ton of attribution. It takes these platforms multiple days to actually properly attribute. Because sales will trickle in a couple days later, and the whole entire 9 miles of why attribution's bad right now, it's critical, in my opinion, to always look at a blended level. And on a blended level, on a 7-day blended level, if you're losing money and it's heading in the wrong direction, turn it off. Because you don't want to be media buying with your worst performing shit. So hopefully, Clutch, that answers that question. I will, Clutch. I'll end up uploading this on the YouTube channel so you can recap it there. All right, question. I'm based in the EU, Norway. Which countries would you recommend targeting for the best results? Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. It depends where you can ship to. I would say that the best countries you can target in Europe is great, dude, for e-commerce. Like, you can target Germany, Australia, you can target the UK, you can target, Norway, you can target, I would say any countries in the area that have a lot less competition are probably fantastic to target and to play with. That's what I would say. You can also obviously target US, Canada, etc. Saint White as asking, are you able to also grow your business to have more organic sales as compared to paid sales? Yeah, dude. So bro, I have generated, look at this. Let's take a look at 2021. I want to show you guys this. 2021, I ran this business that I'm still running today, pupring.com. We spent hardly anything on ads, and we generated about almost $1 million in revenue, $857,000 in revenue. Guess what? This was from fucking organic, dude, right? Now, how do you do that, right? We have to get good at making content and good at making viral content. That's what that boils down to. But I mean, I encourage you, if you are interested in diving into kind of my brand's journey, You can go to @puprings on TikTok. You can take a look at all of the content that has, well, if it wants to load, I don't know why it's not right now, but you can take a look at through all the content I've posted. We've had a lot of success with virality. Earlier on, we were pretty new to the platform, so that definitely gave us an edge. But with that said, dude, it's completely possible to still go viral. It's completely possible to generate a ridiculous amount of followers and traffic and revenue from going viral. Here's my wife's account. She posts girl stuff. She gets videos that, she goes viral all the time. I mean, you could check out what she posts. It's very niche down, but dude, if she wants to drive revenue to a specific project through her following, she can easily do that. So it's completely possible. You just need to identify what is the content you need to be creating in order to go viral. And then you need to create that content, circling back to point one that we made earlier. You need to create that content at a scale, and you're going to start getting some pieces that go viral. So yeah, 100% possible to go viral. That was our bread and butter for the entire 2021 and partial of 2022 until we really stepped foot on ads. But yeah, hopefully that answers that question, Clutch. Jason says, what is the best suppliers in the US? Dude, that's a pretty loaded question, to be completely honest with you. I would say I'm going to answer it like this. There are multiple. I want to say there's thousands of different suppliers, right? Most of the time, you are going to be buying, if you're buying products in bulk in the US, you're buying from an agent. You're buying from somebody who already bought the product from China to their warehouse, and now they're reselling it, right? So you're going to be better off identifying what product you can sell, what's going to make sense, what's going to have a big margin for you. And you're going to be better off bulk buying that product from China to your house and shipping it out yourself. Because hear me out, you're going to be able to then curate the customer experience to be fucking top notch, right? You want to be giving them stickers, bro. You want to make a cute little packaging. You want people to be able to open the product that you're selling them, right? You want them to be able to open the product that you're selling them, and you want them to gasp and be like, oh my God, this thing's fucking amazing. I paid only $30 for this? And it came with stickers, and it came with this, and it came with that. You can't really do that unless you are curating everything that's going out. So my recommendation, and this is just from, me doing this for the last few years, has been to focus on the customer, give good experience, make your brand something that people want to come back to. And you do that right, you're going to have these people come back, and you're going to have them pay you again, right? And you're going to make more money then. That's how I like to approach it, just from doing it for the last couple of years. What's your maximum markup for a product in your opinion? I've seen different people's markup. Yeah, so as far as markup goes, Clutch, I like to boil it down like this. You want to have a minimum of, I would recommend a 70% gross margin. 80 is recommended, right? By industry standards, if you have 80, you're pretty chilling, typically. But 70%, I would say, is kind of like a base. And even we struggle with getting to a 70% with some of our jewelry products. That's why we're starting to say, fuck it, we just have to increase prices, right? But I would say 70% is kind of, is a base that I would recommend, recommendation for my opinion. Now, how can you identify this? Well, if your selling price is $100 and your cost of goods are $30, right? You're left with $70, which is your 70, your 70%. So that's simple math using $100 and $30 cost of goods. Hopefully that answers your question there. That leaves you with $20 profit, not including ad costs. Yeah. So again, Clutch, I want to just add on this a little bit more for you. I would recommend that, whatever business you're running, that you have a higher gross profit of than $20. I think $20 is way too small. I think that ad costs in this day and age are significantly higher than $20 on a typical blended level. So my recommendation would be to make sure you have at least about $30 to work with in order to get an acquisition. How do you produce your products during Chinese New Year? Super simple, dude. You have a conversation with your factories, your manufacturers, and you say, hey guys, we need to keep going, regardless of this, how can we make this happen? We were able to continue to run through Chinese New Year by simply having some people that would take additional shifts. What's your budget recommendation to start? So again, circling back to this, testing. That's what you're going to be doing. At the start, you're testing content. You are testing content. So what you need budget-wise to test content, you can do the math. I recommend $20 an ad set. The ad set needs to have at least 2 to 3 pieces of content in there. And you need to be testing at least 10 to 15 pieces of content a week minimum, in my opinion, right? So simple math, if we're testing, if we're doing, let's just say we're doing 15. So if we're doing, that's 5 ad sets, right? So 5 times 3 is, it's 15. So we're doing 5 ad sets times $20. That's $100 a day. $100 a day times, let's just say you're testing these for 7 days. That's $700, right? So it adds up pretty quickly. And that's why one of my biggest recommendations for anybody who's trying to get into the space, especially if you're trying to get into paid media, you got to have some budget, right? You have to have, I recommend, have some type of income that's coming in. I think that's very important, because you don't want to just have $1,000 and now use 700 of that to test and then kill your ads halfway and not give them enough time to test because you're anxious about the performance. Right? So I like to always recommend utilizing debt. Just make sure you can pay it back. Make sure you have some money coming in. But I like to always recommend utilizing credit cards to put ad spend on to let you stretch that out, give you a better chance of getting more sales to come in so you can, pay that off. But yeah, cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be hopping off, but I hope that this was valuable for you all. If you are interested, like I mentioned before, into more frequent content like this, we're going to be doing multiple times a week live streams on this platform that I'm building. The whole entire premise of it is transparent e-commerce education, which I don't think really currently exists in the space, and I think it should exist. So feel free to check that out. Yeah, and if you're not inside the server, hop in the Discord server. I'm pretty active in there. But yeah, I hope this was beneficial. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Thursday. And until next time, you guys take it easy. And I hope that you got some value from this live stream. So take care. I'll catch you guys later. Stay beat. Bye.